Billionaire shows up unannounced, catches Fiancee, pouring dirty water on his mother and daughter. Malcolm St. James stood frozen in the shadow of his estate's grand entrance, his hand gripping the door handle. Through the ornate glass panels, he witnessed a scene that made his blood run cold. His fiancée, Rebecca Covington, the woman he'd planned to marry in 3 weeks, stood at the top of the sweeping staircase, her designer dress pristine as always, holding a bucket of what appeared to be filthy water. Below her, his 65-year-old mother, Miss Gloria, and his 7-year-old daughter Zara were slowly ascending the stairs after their weekly session in the Legacy Garden. What would you do if you witnessed someone you trusted betraying your family like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The late afternoon sun filtered through the mansion's windows, catching the diamond on Rebecca's finger, the very ring he'd placed there 4 months ago, worth more than most people's homes. But in this moment, that sparkle seemed to mock everything he believed about her. His mother's weathered hands were still dirty from teaching Zara about the vegetable garden she'd started, a tradition from their humble beginnings in New Orleans' 7th Ward, long before Malcolm had built his tech empire. Zara's little face beamed with pride, clutching a small basket of fresh collard greens and herbs they'd harvested together. Time seemed to slow as Rebecca's lips curled into a sneer. "I've told you both before, use the service entrance. You're tracking dirt through my future home." Her voice carried that subtle venom Malcolm had never heard before. Had he been blind all this time? "But Daddy always says we can use any door." Zara's small voice quavered. "This is our home, baby girl." "It's all right," Miss Gloria spoke softly, her voice carrying the warmth and wisdom of generations. "We'll clean any mess." "Zara just wanted to show me the new flowers near the front garden." Malcolm watched in horror as Rebecca's grip tightened on the bucket, his body tensed, ready to burst through the door. But something kept him rooted, perhaps the sheer disbelief that the woman he'd trusted with his heart, his daughter and his mother, could be capable of such cruelty. "I don't care what Malcolm says. He's not here, is always at his precious company." Rebecca's mask slipped clumpen. "When I'm the lady of this house, things will be different. No more dirty gardening. No more playing in the mud like common folk. This isn't some 7th Ward backyard." The words hit Malcolm like physical blows. His mother had raised him alone after losing his father early, working as a school teacher by day and preparing food for local restaurants at night. She'd kept their small garden alive even in the hardest times, teaching him about growth, patience, and pride in their heritage. Everything he'd achieved, he owed to her determination. And Zara, his precious daughter, who'd already lost her mother to cancer 3 years ago, how long had Rebecca been treating them this way? His phone vibrated in his pocket, likely his VP wondering why he'd abruptly left the office after that disturbing anonymous email with photos of Rebecca's true behavior when he wasn't home. He'd dismissed them as fake, defending her. Now he understood why the sender had insisted he come home unannounced today. Rebecca raised the bucket, and Malcolm finally snapped into action. But before he could reach the door, she tipped it forward. Time crystallized into perfect, horrible clarity as the dirty water arced through the air. What happened next would be forever seared into his memory. His mother, with the quick reflexes that had served her through decades of hardship, pulled Zara against her, turning to shield the child with her own body. The filthy water splashed over Miss Gloria's back, soaking her clothes in the precious vegetables they'd gathered. Zara's cry of "Grandma" shattered the silence. But it was his mother's quiet dignity that broke Malcolm's heart. She simply stood there, water dripping from her clothes, still protecting her granddaughter. Rebecca's triumphant laugh died in her throat as Malcolm threw open the door, its heavy weight crashing against the wall with a sound like thunder. Rebecca's face transformed instantly, a practiced smile replacing the cruelty he'd witnessed. "Darling, you're home early. There was a spill, and..." But Malcolm wasn't looking at her. He rushed to his mother and daughter, shrugging off his suit jacket to wrap around Miss Gloria's shoulders. Zara clung to his leg, chirping. "Daddy," she whispered, "is Grandma gonna be okay?" "It's all right, my sweet girl," he murmured, then turned to his mother. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I should have..." "No apologies needed, son," Miss Gloria said firmly, her quiet strength unmistakable even in her drenched state. Sometimes the Lord shows us what we need to see right when we need to see it. Finally, Malcolm turned to Rebecca, who had descended a few steps, one manicured hand extended pleadingly. In that moment, studying her beautiful, calculating face, he realized how perfectly she'd played him. The sophisticated socialite who'd seemed so interested in his family's history, who'd promised to love Zara as her own, who'd made all the right moves to secure a place in his world. But now he saw her true reflection, and no amount of designer clothes or practiced smiles could mask the ugliness within. "Malcolm, please," Rebecca began. "Let me explain." He held up his hand, his voice deadly quiet. "The explanation I want to hear is how long have you been terrorizing my family in their own home?" The silence that followed his question seemed to echo through the mansion's marble halls, carrying the weight of shattered trust and the promise of consequences to come. "How long?" Malcolm repeated, his voice rising as the initial shock gave way to controlled fury. The marble foyer seemed to shrink with the tension building between them. Behind him, he could hear his mother softly consoling Zara, their wet clothes dripping onto the imported tiles Rebecca had insisted on installing last month. Rebecca's perfectly made-up face cycled through expressions: shock, calculation, and finally, a twisted sort of defiance. "You weren't supposed to be home," she said, as if that explained everything. "That's your response? Not that you didn't do it, but that I wasn't supposed to catch you?" Malcolm took a step forward, his 6'3" frame casting a shadow up the staircase. "Answer my question, Rebecca. How long?" Miss Gloria's quiet voice cut through the tension. "Malcolm, let me take Zara upstairs to change." "No, Mama. I want them both to hear this." He turned slightly, keeping Rebecca in his peripheral vision. "Zara needs to see that we don't let anyone, no matter who they are, treat family this way." Rebecca's designer heels clicked against the marble as she descended another step. "Family, please. Your precious family has been undermining me from day one. Your mother with her common ways, teaching Zara all those old-fashioned traditions instead of letting me show her how a proper young lady should behave." "A proper young lady?" Miss Gloria's voice held a sharp edge. Malcolm rarely heard. "Child, I've forgotten more about being a lady than you'll ever know. A real lady doesn't need designer labels to prove her worth." "See?" Rebecca's voice rose shrilly. "This is exactly what I mean. Always judging me, making little comments. And you," she pointed at Zara, who flinched closer to her grandmother. "You spoiled little. Choose your next words very carefully." Malcolm cut in, his tone arctic. "Because I'm starting to think that anonymous email didn't show me half of what's been going on in my home." A flash of something, fear, crossed Rebecca's face. "What email?" Malcolm pulled out his phone, pulled up the email and began reading. "Mr. St. James, I work for your household staff and can no longer stay silent about Miss Covington's behavior toward your family. The attached photos show incidents from the past 3 months. Those servants had no right." Rebecca's composure cracked completely. They work for me, Malcolm corrected. "And apparently they have more loyalty to this family than my own fiancé." He scrolled through the photos, Rebecca locking the garden gate while his mother and Zara were inside during last month's heat wave. Rebecca accidentally breaking Zara's science project the night before it was due. Rebecca directing the staff to serve his mother cold food at family dinner. "Malcolm, baby, you have to understand." Rebecca's voice turned honeyed, pleading. "I was just trying to bring some class, some sophistication to what? To the family of a man who built a billion-dollar tech company from nothing. To a 7-year-old girl who's already reading at a 6th grade level. To my mother, who has 3 degrees and taught at Xavier University." Each word seemed to strike Rebecca like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed world of excuses was crumbling. "Daddy." Zara's small voice drew everyone's attention. She stood straighter now, though she kept hold of her grandmother's hand. "Remember when you told me about Mommy's favorite saying? The truth always comes out in the wash." Malcolm's heart clenched at the mention of his late wife, Angela. She'd been right about so many things. "Yes, baby girl, I remember." "Well," Zara continued, looking directly at Rebecca for the first time, "I think today is washing day." A choked sound that might have been a laugh came from Miss Gloria. Even Malcolm felt his lips twitch despite the situation. His daughter had inherited her mother's spirit. That was certain. Rebecca's face darkened, You think this is funny? You think you've won? Malcolm, darling, think about what you're doing. Think about the St. Clair merger. What will people say when they hear you broke off our engagement? Your father's company isn't the only one interested in a merger. Malcolm cut her off. And unlike you, I don't make business decisions based on social climate. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, the family ring Rebecca had rejected in favor of the larger diamond she now wore. I thank God every day that you showed your true self before I made the mistake of making you a permanent part of this family. Rebecca's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You can't be serious. You're choosing them over me, over everything I could bring to your life. No, Rebecca, I'm choosing love over appearances, family over social status, reality over the pretty lies you've been selling. You set the velvet box on the bottom stair. I want my ring back, and I want you out of my house within the hour. Your things will be packed and delivered to wherever you specify. You'll regret this, Rebecca hissed, yanking the diamond ring from her finger and throwing it at his feet. When the society pages hear about this, they'll hear whatever story you choose to tell. Miss Gloria, interrupted, steel in her voice. But baby girl, remember this. Ain't no lie ever lived longer than the truth. Rebecca's mouth opened and closed. But for once, she seemed to have run out of words. With a final glare at them all, she turned and stormed up the stairs, her heels striking the marble like angry exclamation points. As soon as she was gone, Malcolm turned to his family. Mama, I am so sorry, I should have seen. Hush now, Miss Gloria pulled him into a hug, wet clothes and all. You saw when it mattered most. Zara wrapped her arms around both of them. Can we make gumbo tonight, Grandma? Daddy always says your gumbo fixes everything. Malcolm laughed, the sound slightly watery. That's because it does, baby girl. That's because it does. As they stood there, holding each other in the fading afternoon light, Malcolm sent up a silent prayer of thanks. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you back to everything you really need. From upstairs came the sounds of doors slamming and angry muttering as Rebecca packed. But down here, in the circle of his true family's arms, Malcolm St. James had never felt richer. The next morning dawned with a clarity that only comes after a storm. Malcolm sat in his home office, watching the sunrise paint the garden in shades of gold. The events of yesterday still felt surreal, like a fever dream, but the empty ring box on his desk confirmed their reality. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since Rebecca's dramatic exit. She'd already launched her preemptive strike on social media, painting herself as the victim of a controlling family and an ungrateful child. The society pages were having a field day with headlines like Tech Billionaire's Cold Feet, The Wedding That Wasn't, and Rebecca Covington Speaks Out, The Dark Side of the St. James Empire. A soft knock interrupted his thought. Come in, he called, already knowing who it was by the gentle rhythm. Miss Gloria entered, carrying 2 mugs of her special Cheery coffee. She'd started her morning ritual early today, knowing her son would need it. You've been up all night, she stated. Not asked. Setting his mug down, Malcolm smiled, taking in his mother's appearance. She wore one of her classic wrap dresses, her locks swept up elegantly, looking every bit the distinguished professor she'd been. No sign of yesterday's ordeal remained, except perhaps a stronger set to her shoulder. The PR team has been working overtime, he admitted, gesturing to his laptop. Rebecca's father is threatening to pull out of all business negotiations. Miss Gloria sipped her coffee, unimpressed. And how's that affecting our stock prices? Malcolm's smile widened at the His mother had been his first investor, putting in her entire retirement savings when he was just a kid with a dream and a laptop. Actually, they're up. Turns out, Rebecca's father isn't as influential as he thinks he is. Course not. Real power doesn't need to make threats. She settled into the leather chair across from his desk. Now, what's really keeping you up? Malcolm sighed, running a hand over his closely cropped hair. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed. The little comments, the accidents, the way Zara stopped singing around the house. How did I not see it, Mama? 'Cause you see the best in people, baby. Just like your father did. Miss Gloria's voice softened at the mention of her late husband. That's not a weakness, Malcolm. It's what makes you a good man and a great father. But I let her hurt my family. No, Miss Gloria cut him off firmly. She made her choices. And when you saw the truth, You did what needed to be done. That's all any of us can do." Before Malcolm could respond, another knock came at the door, this one higher and more energetic. Zara bounded in, already dressed for school in her uniform, her braids adorned with the purple beads she loved. "Daddy, Grandma, look what I found." She held up a photo album, her face glowing with excitement. Malcolm recognized it immediately, the family album Angela had put together before she passed. "Where did you find that, baby girl?" "In the garden shed. Remember how Rebecca said she'd clean up the shed and some of our stuff went missing? It was all in a box marked donation." Zara's voice carried more understanding than a 7-year-old should have to possess. Miss Gloria's eyes flashed, but her voice remained steady. "Well, it looks like the Lord works in mysterious ways. Bring it here, baby. Let's see what other treasures we got back." They spent the next few minutes flipping through pages of memories. Malcolm's college graduation, Zara's birth, family cookouts, and quiet moments that told the story of their lives. Angela's smile beamed from many of the photos, her love for them preserved in print. "I miss Mommy," Zara said quietly, tracing a picture of Angela teaching her to walk. "But you know what? I think she helped us see the truth about Rebecca." Malcolm and Miss Gloria exchanged glances. "What makes you say that, sweet pea?" Malcolm asked. "Remember the anonymous email you got? It came from Angela's old email address." Malcolm's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. "What?" Zara nodded sagely. "I saw it when you were showing the pictures yesterday. It came from angela.watch@email.com. That was Mommy's email, wasn't it? For her photography business." Malcolm quickly pulled up the email on his phone. There it was. He'd been so focused on the content that he hadn't even noticed the sender's address. His hands trembled slightly. "The Lord works in mysterious ways indeed," Miss Gloria murmured, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "But how?" Malcolm started. "Does it matter?" Miss Gloria reached over to squeeze his hand. "Whether it was one of Angela's old friends, or divine intervention, or just somebody who knew that email would get your attention, the truth came out when it needed to." Zara climbed into her father's lap, something she'd stopped doing when Rebecca complained it wasn't proper. "Can we put up Mommy's pictures again? The ones Rebecca made us take down?" "Baby girl, we can put up every single one," Malcolm promised, holding her close. "And maybe we can take some new ones too." "Speaking of new beginnings," Miss Gloria said, reaching into her bag, "I got something for us." She pulled out 3 small gardening trowels, each engraved with their names. "Thought we might expand that legacy garden today after school. Add some new growth to our family story." Malcolm felt something in his chest loosen, a tension he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. "That sounds perfect, Mama. But first," he turned to his laptop. "I need to make something clear to the world." His fingers flew over the keyboard as he composed a simple statement. "To all concerned parties, yesterday I ended my engagement after witnessing behavior that violated the core values of my family and my company. The synonyms. James family stands for integrity, love, and respect. Values my late wife Angela embodied. Values my mother taught me, and values I'm proud to pass on to my daughter. No business deal or social connection is worth compromising these principles. We ask for privacy as we move forward, stronger together. Malcolm St. James." "That'll set them talking." Miss Gloria nodded approvingly. "Let them talk," Malcolm said, hitting send. "We know who we are." Zara's face suddenly lit up. "Dad, can we have a garden party instead of a wedding party? With Grandma's gumbo and music and all our real friends?" Malcolm laughed, the sound freer than it had been in months. "You know what? That's the best idea I've heard in a long time." As they sat there planning their celebration of family and truth, the morning sun streamed through the windows, casting everything in a new light. Sometimes, Malcolm reflected, you had to let go of the life you thought you should want to embrace the life you were meant to have. And looking at his mother and daughter, their heads bent together over the photo album, he knew without doubt that this was exactly where he was meant to be.
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. All right, back to the story.
3 weeks later, on what would have been his wedding day, Malcolm's estate was transformed into a celebration of family and resilience. The legacy garden, now twice its original size, burst with colorful blooms and fragrant herbs. Strings of lights twinkled in the trees, and the sound of jazz floated through the evening air. Instead of the stuffy society wedding Rebecca had planned, the garden party hummed with genuine joy. Children ran freely through carefully marked paths between the vegetable beds, their laughter mixing with the music. Miss Gloria held court near her prized tomato plants, sharing gardening tips with a group of entranced listeners. Mr. James, his assistant Kendra, approached with a tablet in hand. "You might want to see this." Malcolm glanced at the screen and couldn't help but smile. The society pages, that had been so quick to run Rebecca's version of events, were now featuring photos of his garden party. The contrast between their celebration and the exclusive charity gala Rebecca was hosting across town was striking. Tech billionaire trades society wedding for soulful garden celebration, he read aloud. While former fiancée Rebecca Covington hosts $10,000 per plate charity gala, Malcolm James proves money can't buy class. They're calling it the anti-society event of the season, Kendra grinned. Every influencer who turned down Miss Covington's gala is posting about our organic appetizers and community spirit. Speaking of appetizers, Miss Gloria's voice carried over as she joined them. "Baby, you need to try these stuffed crab mushrooms." The caterer followed my recipe perfectly. Malcolm accepted the offered hors d'oeuvre, knowing better than to decline his mother's food recommendation. "Mama, have you seen Zara? Last I saw, she was giving her friends a tour of her herb garden section. That child is becoming quite the botanist." Pride shone in Miss Gloria's eyes. "Oh, and Malcolm, your special guest arrived a few minutes ago." As if on cue, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s appeared, accompanied by Zara, who was chattering excitedly. "Uncle James." Malcolm stepped forward to embrace James Covington, Rebecca's uncle, and the true power behind Covington Industries. "I'm so glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it for the world," James replied warmly. "Especially after seeing those quarterly reports you sent over. I must say, Malcolm, your new agricultural technology division is exactly what our company needs." "Daddy, Uncle James says he wants to see my butterfly garden." Zara beamed. "I told him about how we're growing plants that attract monarchs and other pollinators." "Is that right?" Malcolm exchanged knowing looks with James. They'd been quietly negotiating a much bigger deal than the one Rebecca's father had threatened to withdraw from. "Well, why don't you give him the full tour? And maybe show him those new irrigation systems we're testing?" As Zara led James away, Miss Gloria touched Malcolm's arm. "Baby, look who else decided to show up." Near the garden entrance, several of Rebecca's society friends stood looking slightly uncertain. Their presence wasn't entirely surprising. Malcolm had made sure to send them invitations after they'd reached out privately to apologize for believing Rebecca's lie. "Ladies," he called out, walking over to greet them. "Welcome to our celebration. Malcolm, this is beautiful." Sierra, Rebecca's former maid of honor, said sincerely. "We were just saying how much more relaxed everyone seems compared to..." She caught herself. "Compared to Rebecca's gala?" Malcolm finished diplomatically. "It's okay, we're celebrating truth here tonight, in all its forms." Speaking of truth, another woman stepped forward, clutching her phone. "You should see what's happening at her event." The phone showed social media updates from Rebecca's charity gala. The elegant venue looked cold and empty, with barely a quarter of the expected guests in attendance. Rebecca's forced smile appeared in photo after photo, her designer dress somehow looking overdone against the sparse backdrop. "Turns out," Sierra said quietly, "people don't appreciate being manipulated. When the truth about how she treated your family came out, well, let's just say, loyalty still means something in our circles." Before Malcolm could respond, a commotion near the garden drew their attention. Zara's voice rang out. "Daddy, come quick. The butterflies are hatching." The entire party seemed to gravitate toward the butterfly garden, where dozens of monarch butterflies were emerging from their chrysalises. Zara stood in the middle of it all, her face glowing with wonder as the creatures took their first flights around her. Someone started taking pictures, capturing the moment when a butterfly landed on Zara's outstretched hand. In her purple dress, surrounded by flowers and floating monarchs, she looked like something out of a fairy tale. "Now that," Miss Gloria said softly beside Malcolm, "is what real magic looks like." James Covington, who had witnessed the whole scene, cleared his throat. "Malcolm, I've seen enough. Let's make this official." He pulled out a folder from his jacket, the merger papers, revised according to our new terms. Covington Industries would be proud to partner with St. James Tech, under your leadership, of course. Malcolm accepted the folder, aware of the subtle message being sent. James was publicly choosing him over his own niece, making it clear where the family company's future lay. "Thank you, James. I think this partnership will benefit everyone." Malcolm's phone buzzed with a news alert. He couldn't help but laugh at the headline. "Breaking: Covington Industries announces surprise merger at garden party." The evening continued to unfold like a flower reaching for the sun. Miss Gloria's gumbo was served as the sun set, its rich aroma mixing with the garden's natural perfume. The jazz band played softly as fireflies began to join the strings of lights in the trees. Later, as families began to leave with small potted herbs as party favors, Zara's idea, Malcolm found himself back in his favorite spot in the garden, the same bench where he used to sit with Angela, planning their future. "You know," Miss Gloria said, joining him with 2 fresh cups of coffee, "Angela would be proud of all this. Not just the garden, but the way you protected our family's heart." "I was thinking about something she used to say," Malcolm replied, accepting the coffee. "About how a garden teaches you everything you need to know about life, how you have to pay attention to what grows and what doesn't, what's real and what just looks pretty on the surface." "Smart woman, you're Angela." Miss Gloria patted his hand. "And she'd be so proud of that little girl of yours. Zara's got both your strength and her mama's light." As if summoned by her name, Zara appeared, yawning but still excited. "Daddy, Grandma, did you see? Every single butterfly hatched." And Uncle James said, "He's going to help us build a greenhouse for my science project." Malcolm pulled his daughter close, breathing in the scent of flowers in her hair. "You know what, baby girl? I think this was the perfect way to spend what would have been my wedding day. Much better than a boring old wedding," Zara declared with all the wisdom of her 7 years. "Can we do this every year? We can call it our family garden party. I think that's a wonderful tradition to start," Miss Gloria agreed. "A celebration of growth, truth, and family." As the last guest departed, and the lights twinkled overhead, Malcolm St. James sat with his true family, surrounded by the garden they'd built together. Sometimes, he reflected, the most beautiful blooms come after the hardest storm, and looking at his mother and daughter, their faces peaceful in the gentle evening light, he knew they'd weather whatever came next together, rooted in love and truth. 1 year later, Malcolm stood in his office, looking out at the expanded gardens that had become a symbol of his family's transformation. The morning sun caught the dew on the leaves, making everything sparkle like his mother's favorite crystal glasses. The Wall Street Journal lay open on his desk, featuring a spread about St. James Tech's revolutionary urban farming initiatives. The article highlighted how their merger with Covington Industries had revolutionized sustainable agriculture in inner city. But it was the personal section of the story that had social media buzzing. From scandal to success, how a failed society wedding led to urban farming revolution. His phone buzzed with a text from James Covington. "Saw the article. Rebecca's father finally admitted you were right. Too little, too late, wouldn't you say?" Malcolm smiled, remembering how Rebecca's carefully crafted revenge plans had backfired spectacularly. Her father's attempts to block the merger had only pushed James to fast-track the deal. Now, a year later, their joint venture was transforming food deserts into green spaces across the country. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. 8-year-old Zara burst in, wearing her school uniform and an excited grin. "Daddy, my science project got chosen for the national competition. Miss Thompson says I'm the youngest finalist ever." Malcolm scooped her up, marveling at how much she'd grown. Her project, a sophisticated hydroponic system she'd developed with help from his engineers, had already caught the attention of several environmental organizations. "That's amazing, baby girl. Have you told Grandma yet?" "Told me what?" Miss Gloria appeared in the doorway, elegant as ever in her gardening clothes. I could hear this one's excitement all the way from the greenhouse. As Zara excitedly shared her news, Malcolm noticed something different about his mother. She was practically glowing, and it wasn't just pride in her granddaughter. "Mama," he said slowly, "is there something you want to tell us?" Miss Gloria's smile widened. Well, since you asked, the university called. They want me to head up their new urban agriculture department. So a little garden project caught their attention. Grandma's going to be a professor again. Zara clapped. Can I come to your classes? Baby, you're already teaching parts of my curriculum. Miss Gloria laughed. Those butterfly gardens you designed are going to be a case study. Malcolm felt his chest tighten with pride. In the year since the garden party, his mother had emerged from Rebecca's shadow stronger than ever. She'd taken their family's growing techniques and transformed them into a community education program that was gaining national attention. We should celebrate, he declared. Both my brilliant ladies having such big news. Actually, Miss Gloria said, her voice taking on that tone that Malcolm knew meant she was up to something. I already planned a little gathering for tonight. There's someone I'd like you both to meet. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. Oh? Don't give me that look, baby. Dr. Lisa Carter is the head of environmental sciences at the university. She's been instrumental in setting up the new department, and she happens to be a single mother with a daughter Zara's age. Mama, what? Can't a mother want her son to meet an intelligent, accomplished woman who appreciates gardens and family values? Miss Gloria's innocence wasn't fooling anyone. Ooh, is she pretty, Grandma? Zara asked, making both adults laugh. Baby girl, she's beautiful inside and out, and wait till you meet her daughter Jasmine. She's into butterflies too. Malcolm shook his head, but he was smiling. Leave it to his mother to play matchmaker in the most organic way possible. What time is dinner? 7 o'clock. And Malcolm? Miss Gloria's voice softened. She's nothing like Rebecca. She's real. The day passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. By evening, the garden was lit with the same string lights from the party a year ago. The table was set on the patio, overlooking the butterfly garden that had flourished under Zara's care. When Dr. Lisa Carter arrived with her daughter Malcolm, understood what his mother meant by real. Lisa's warm brown eyes crinkled with genuine pleasure as Zara immediately dragged Jasmine off to see the butterflies. Her natural hair was styled in elegant twists, and she wore a simple sundress that seemed to belong among the flowers. Mr. St. James, she extended her hand, her grip firm and professional. Your mother has told me so much about your work in sustainable technology. Malcolm, please, he replied, finding himself charmed by her direct manner. And she's told me about your research in environmental education. Have you seen Daddy's new vertical gardens? Zara called out, already bonding with Jasmine. They're going to help people grow food in small spaces. Is that right? Lisa's interest was genuine as she turned back to Malcolm. I'd love to hear more about that. My dissertation was actually on urban food sustainability. Dinner flowed naturally, the conversation moving easily between professional passion and personal story. Lisa spoke about growing up in Oakland, about losing her husband to illness 3 years ago, about rebuilding her life through her work and her daughter. It's not easy, she said at one point, balancing everything. But seeing Jasmine light up when we work in our community gardening, it reminds me why we do this work. Malcolm found himself sharing too. About Angela, about the garden's role in healing their family, about his dreams of making fresh food accessible to every community. Miss Gloria and the girls had mysteriously disappeared to the kitchen for dessert, leaving them alone on the patio. Your mother's quite the mastermind, Lisa said with a knowing smile. Malcolm laughed. She is. But I have to admit her instincts are usually right. Well, there was that one time with Rebecca. He trailed off, then was surprised to find himself telling Lisa the whole story. She listened intently, her expression thoughtful. You know what I see in that story? She said finally. A man who puts family first, who values substance over show, and who knows how to learn from his mistakes. Those are rare qualities, Malcolm St. James. Before he could respond, squeals of laughter announced the return of their daughters, each carrying a plate of Miss Gloria's famous peach cobbler. Daddy, can Jasmine come see my science project tomorrow? She has amazing ideas for improving the water flow system. Only if Doc Carter agrees, Malcolm said, catching Lisa's eye. Please, Mom. Jasmine joined in. Their butterfly garden is amazing. Lisa pretended to consider it. Well, I do have that meeting with the university board tomorrow, which is conveniently located just 10 minutes from here. Perfect, Miss Gloria declared, appearing with coffee. You can all come for lunch after. I'm thinking of testing some new recipes for the community cooking classes. As the evening wound down, Malcolm walked Lisa and Jasmine to their car. The girls were already making plans for tomorrow, their excitement infectious. This was lovely, Lisa said softly. Unexpected, but lovely. Would you like to make it less unexpected? Malcolm found himself asking. Dinner next week. Just us? Lisa's smile was worth every butterfly in the garden. I'd like that very much. Later, after the girls were in bed and the dishes were done, Malcolm found his mother in her favorite spot in the garden. Not a word, he said, sitting beside her. Wasn't going to say a thing, she replied, her satisfaction evident, just remembering something Angela used to say about gardens being places of new beginnings. Malcolm looked up at the stars, thinking about the day's event, his daughter's achievement, his mother's new career, and the possibility of something real and wonderful growing in his life again. Thank you, Mama, he said simply. For what, baby? For teaching me how to tend what matters, how to recognize what's real, how to let love grow in its own time. Miss Gloria squeezed his hand, and together they sat in the garden, surrounded by the sweet smell of possibility. 6 months into their relationship, Malcolm and Lisa sat in the garden, watching their daughters tend to the butterfly sanctuary they'd created together. The project had grown beyond Zara's initial science experiment, becoming a registered monarch way station that local schools visited for educational programs. They're quite the team, Lisa observed, smiling as Jasmine helped Zara measure the new milkweed plants. At 9 years old, both girls had become passionate advocates for environmental conservation, their friendship blossoming alongside their garden projects. Just like their parents, Malcolm replied, squeezing her hand. Their professional collaboration had proven as successful as their personal relationship. Lisa's environmental education programs, combined with St. James Tech's urban farming initiatives, were transforming communities across the country. Miss Gloria emerged from the greenhouse, carrying a tray of her famous mint tea. Y'all see the news this morning? She asked, settling into her favorite chair. Malcolm nodded. Rebecca's latest attempt to regain social standing had backfired spectacularly. Her exclusive charity gala for urban renewal had been overshadowed by the success of their community garden program, which had just received federal funding for nationwide expansion. I heard she tried to take credit for inspiring the initiative, Lisa said, shaking her head. Something about how her vision for combining luxury and community service led to all this. The truth has a way of blooming through the weeds, Miss Gloria remarked, sipping her tea. Speaking of which, Malcolm, have you told Lisa about the childhood garden? Malcolm felt Lisa's curious gaze. The one in the 7th Ward. I mentioned it. Baby, you did more than mention it. You bought the whole block. Miss Gloria's eyes twinkled. Lisa, this son of mine just acquired every abandoned lot around his childhood home. Planning something special, isn't he? Lisa turned to Malcolm, her expression soft. Is that what those mysterious meetings have been about? Malcolm hadn't planned to share this yet, but looking at Lisa, brilliant, understanding Lisa who'd helped him see that love could be both passionate and peaceful, he knew it was time. I want to create a memorial garden, he explained. Not just for Angela, but for all the community members who kept their gardens alive during hard times. The ones who taught me that growth happens even in unlikely places, like Miss Marie, Miss Gloria added, who grew tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets on her fire escape. Or Mr. James, who turned that vacant lot into a cornfield. The garden will have sections dedicated to their stories, Malcolm continued, warming to the subject. With plaques explaining their cultivation techniques, their history. We'll use St. James Tech's vertical farming systems, but maintain the traditional growing methods too. A bridge between past and future. A living history, Lisa breathed, her academic mind already spinning with possibilities. Malcolm, this could be revolutionary, combining cultural preservation with sustainable agriculture, while providing fresh food for the neighborhood, he finished. But there's more. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box, not unlike the one he'd once retrieved from Rebecca, but carrying a completely different meaning this time. Lisa's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a ring that managed to be both elegant and understated. The central stone was surrounded by tiny emeralds in a pattern that resembled growing vines. I was going to wait, Malcolm said softly, plan some elaborate moment, But sitting here, in this garden that's seen our families grow together, it feels right to ask now. Lisa Carter, will you? Yes, Jasmine's voice rang out. Both adults turned to find their daughters standing nearby, barely containing their excitement. Baby girl, Lisa admonished. Though she was smiling, I believe that was your future father's question to ask. Future father? Malcolm raised an eyebrow, hope blooming in his chest. Well, Lisa turned back to him, tears shining in her eyes. That depends on if you're actually going to ask the question. Malcolm slid to one knee, right there in the garden soil. Dr. Lisa Carter, brilliant mother, passionate educator, and the most genuine person I've ever known. Will you marry me? Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. The girls' cheers mixed with Miss Gloria's happy tears. As Malcolm slipped the ring onto Lisa's finger, it fit perfectly, just like she fit perfectly into their lives. Now that's settled, Miss Gloria declared, wiping her eyes. We should talk about the wedding. And before you say anything, Malcolm, I saw that look. No, we're not doing another garden party. We're not? Zara pouted. No, baby, we're doing something better. Miss Gloria's smile was mysterious. How about a wedding in the new memorial garden? First ceremony in the space. Christening it with joy and new beginnings? Lisa's eyes lit up. In the 7th ward? Among all that history and hope? It's perfect, and Jasmine added excitedly, we can release butterflies instead of throwing rice. The adults laughed, but Malcolm could already see it. Their families joined together among the blooming testament to resilience and growth, surrounded by the community that had shaped him. There's just one thing, he said, squeezing Lisa's hand. The memorial garden won't be ready for at least a year. Good, Lisa replied firmly. That gives us time to do it right. Both the garden and the wedding. Some things shouldn't be rushed. Miss Gloria nodded approvingly. This one's a keeper, baby. She understands that the sweetest blooms come from patient tending. Later that evening, after a celebration dinner that had the girls practically bouncing with excitement, Malcolm and Lisa walked through the garden. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold, fireflies beginning their nightly dance among the flowers. Happy? He asked, though he could see the answer in her radiant expression. Beyond happy, Lisa replied. You know, when my husband died, I thought that was it for me. I'd focus on Jasmine, my work. I never expected to find this kind of love again. I know exactly what you mean. Malcolm pulled her close. After Angela, especially after the disaster with Rebecca, I wasn't sure I could trust my heart again. But you made it easy, natural, like watching a garden grow. Speaking of gardens, Lisa's eyes twinkled. I have some ideas for the memorial space. What if we incorporated an educational center? We could run workshops, host school groups. Already planning to revolutionize it, Dr. Carter St. James. Just Carter, she corrected with a smile. I've worked too hard for those publications to change my professional name. But everywhere else, she kissed him softly. I'll proudly be Mrs. St. James. From the house came the sound of their daughter's laughter mixing with Miss Gloria's voice, the warmth of family and future promises filling the evening air. You know what Angela used to say about gardens? Malcolm said softly. What's that? That they're proof of God's faith in tomorrow, that every seed planted is an act of believing in future beauty. Lisa looked at their blended family through the window, then back at the ring sparkling on her finger. She was right, and look at all the beauty growing here. Malcolm James held his future wife close, surrounded by the garden that had brought them together, and knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where they were all meant to be. 1 year later, the memorial garden in the 7th ward was a testament to what love, vision, and community could create. The abandoned lots had transformed into a vibrant tapestry of greenery, history, and hope. Ancient crepe myrtles lined newly laid paths, their branches creating natural arches perfect for the wedding about to take place. Malcolm stood before a mirror in what used to be his childhood home, now renovated into the garden's educational center. His mother adjusted his bow tie with practiced hands. Your father would be so proud, Miss Gloria said softly. Not just of all this, she gestured to the garden visible through the window, but of the man you've become. Before Malcolm could respond, 10-year-old Zara burst in, resplendent in her flower girl dress, followed by an equally excited Jasmine. "Daddy, you have to come see. The butterfly release boxes are ready, and Mom's dress is the most beautiful thing ever." "And slow down, baby girl," Malcolm laughed. "Is your mother trying to sneak a peek at me?" "No," Jasmine grinned. "She's too busy crying happy tears with Grandma Gloria's sister. But you should see the community center." The community center, originally planned as a simple gathering space, had evolved into something extraordinary. Local artists had painted murals depicting the neighborhood's agricultural history. Display cases housed gardening tools passed down through generations, each with a story of resilience and growth. "Mr. St. James?" James Covington appeared in the doorway. "You might want to see this." Following him outside, Malcolm stopped short. The garden paths were filled with people, not just their invited guests, but community members, each carrying small plants or seeds. "They've been arriving all morning," James explained. "Apparently there's a tradition in the Seventh War. When there's a celebration, everyone brings something to grow." Malcolm's throat tightened as he recognized faces from his childhood. Miss Marie, now in her 80s, sat in a place of honor, her famous tomato plants in decorative pots beside her. Mr. James's grandchildren carried corn seedlings, ready to plant in the section dedicated to their grandfather's memory. "Your mama told us about the memorial garden," Miss Marie called out. "Thought we'd add our own contributions to the wedding day." "The garden belongs to all of us," Malcolm replied, his voice thick with emotion. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd as Lisa appeared in the doorway of the educational center. Her dress, a masterpiece of flowing ivory silk, seemed to catch all the light in the garden, but it was her smile, radiant and real, that took Malcolm's breath away. "Looks like we're having a planting ceremony after the wedding," she said, breaking tradition to walk over to him. "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony," he protested weakly, unable to take his eyes off her. "Baby," Miss Gloria interrupted. "In this family we make our own traditions." The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of old and new. The garden's brick paths, laid with reclaimed materials from the neighborhood's history, led to an altar area surrounded by blooming jasmine and roses. Instead of traditional wedding music, a local jazz band played softly, their notes mixing with the garden's natural symphony. Zara and Jasmine preceded their mother down the aisle, releasing monarch butterflies from decorative baskets. The butterflies, raised in their sanctuary, danced on the breeze as Lisa walked toward Malcolm. The minister, a community elder who'd known Malcolm since childhood, spoke of growth, of nurturing love, of the ways that families and gardens both need tender care and strong roots. "The rings," he called, and the girls stepped forward together, each carrying a band. Malcolm's hands trembled slightly as he slipped the ring onto Lisa's finger, joining it with her engagement ring. "With this ring," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed garden, "I pledge to grow with you, to nurture our love, to tend our family's garden with patience and joy." Lisa's eyes shone as she placed his ring. "With this ring, I promise to be your partner in all seasons, to weather every storm, to celebrate every bloom, and to always keep our love as real as the earth beneath our feet. By the power vested in me," the minister smiled, "and by the blessing of this community, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Their kiss was accompanied by cheers, jazz music, and the flutter of butterfly wings. The reception that followed was unlike anything the society pages could have imagined. Long tables were set up along the garden paths, laden with food prepared by community members. Miss Gloria's gumbo sat proudly alongside Miss Marie's tomato pie and dozens of other family recipes. As the sun began to set, Malcolm and Lisa led their guests in the planting ceremony. Each person added their contribution to the garden, sharing stories of what each plant meant to their family's history. "This is better than any society wedding," Lisa whispered to Malcolm as they watched their daughters help Miss Marie plant her tomatoes. "It's real," he replied, understanding now what his mother had meant all those months ago. "This is about roots, both the ones we come from and the ones we're putting down together." The evening ended with a second-line parade through the garden paths, the jazz band leading guests in celebration. Paper lanterns lit the way, their soft glow mixing with fireflies among the plants. Later, after most guests had gone home and the girls had fallen asleep on Miss Gloria's lap, Malcolm and Lisa stood in their butterfly sanctuary. "Mrs. St. James," he said softly. "Dr. Carter in the classroom," she reminded him with a smile, But Mrs. St. James everywhere else that matters. Did you ever imagine this? He gestured to the garden, the community, their blended family. Something even better, Lisa replied. I imagined real love, authentic connection, purpose. And look what bloomed from those seeds of hope. From the educational center came the sound of Miss Gloria's voice, speaking to a documentary crew that had covered the wedding. This garden, she was saying, is more than just plants and paths. It's a living testimony to what can grow when you plant love in fertile ground. Malcolm held his wife close, breathing in the sweet evening air. Around them, the memorial garden stood as a testament to past, present, and future, much like their love story. Ready to go home? Lisa asked. We are home, Malcolm replied, understanding that home wasn't just their mansion with its manicured gardens. Home was wherever their family's roots grew deep and strong. As they walked back to join their family, butterflies rose from the flowers, their wings catching the last light of their perfect day. In the 7th Ward's memorial garden, love had bloomed into something more beautiful than anyone could have planned. Part 8. Final. Full circle. Love's garden eternal. 5 years after their wedding in the memorial garden, Malcolm and Lisa St. James stood in their expanded butterfly sanctuary, watching their family's newest addition toddle between the flowers. 3-year-old Angela Marie St. James, named for both her late stepmother and Miss Marie, who had passed peacefully in her sleep 2 years prior, had inherited her family's love for growing things. Careful, sweet pea, Malcolm called, as little Angela reached for a monarch butterfly. At 15, Zara was already there, gently showing her baby sister how to let the butterflies land on her open palm. Just like that, Jasmine added, recording the moment for her environmental science project. At 15, she was following in her mother's academic footsteps, already taking advanced placement classes and dreaming of environmental law. Lisa leaned into Malcolm's embrace, her professor's badge still hanging from her neck after a day of teaching at the university. Can you believe how much has grown here? She wasn't just talking about their garden. The St. James Carter Foundation for Urban Agriculture had transformed communities across the country. The memorial garden in the 7th Ward had become a model for similar projects nationwide, combining cultural preservation with sustainable farming practices. Miss Gloria emerged from her teaching greenhouse, where she'd just finished a class for local seniors about container gardening. At 70, she was as vibrant as ever, splitting her time between the university's agricultural department and community education. Y'all see the latest article? She asked, settling into her favorite chair. The Wall Street Journal had just named Malcolm and Lisa among their 100 most influential couples in business, highlighting how their marriage had sparked a revolution in urban farming and community development. Rebecca tried to reach out again, Lisa mentioned casually, making Malcolm raise an eyebrow. She wanted to feature our programs in her new lifestyle magazine. Something about authenticity being the new luxury. Some people never learn. Miss Gloria shook her head. Speaking of learning, how's the expansion going? Malcolm smiled, thinking of their latest project. The St. James Tech Urban Farming Division had developed self-sustaining greenhouse systems that could operate in food deserts year-round. Combined with Lisa's educational programs and community ownership models, they were changing how cities approached food security. The first international site opens in Lagos next month, he replied. Zara and Jasmine have been practicing their Nigerian greetings for the ceremony, and Lisa laughed as their youngest daughter finally succeeded in attracting a butterfly, her delighted squeal carrying across the garden. She's practicing her butterfly diplomacy, Malcolm grinned. The sound of cars approaching drew their attention. The weekly community dinner was about to begin, a tradition that had started at their wedding and never stopped. Every Sunday, their garden hosted families from both their old neighborhood and their current one, breaking bread and sharing stories across generations. Should we tell them today? Lisa asked softly, her hand drifting to her stomach. Malcolm's eyes widened. Are you sure? She nodded, tears sparkling. Confirmed it yesterday. Looks like our garden's growing again. Before Malcolm could respond, Zara called out, Mom, Dad, look what Angela found. In their youngest daughter's hands was a perfectly formed butterfly chrysalis, still attached to a milkweed leaf. New life, Miss Gloria said softly, watching her son and daughter-in-law share a meaningful look. always finding its way into this garden. As their weekly guests began arriving, bringing dishes and plants to share, Malcolm gathered his family close. In the fading sunlight, surrounded by the blooms they'd cultivated together, he felt the full circle of their journey. From the ashes of a superficial engagement had grown something real and lasting. From abandoned lots had sprung gardens of hope. From broken hearts had bloomed a love story that kept growing season after season. Daddy, Angela tugged at his sleeve. "Tell the butterfly story, Unannounced." Malcolm lifted his youngest onto his hip, remembering all the moments that had led to this one. "Well, sweet pea, it all started right here in this garden, when your daddy learned the difference between what glitters and what grows." As he began their family's story, Lisa gathered Zara and Jasmine close. Miss Gloria wiped a happy tear, watching her son share their legacy of love and growth with the next generation. Around them, the garden bloomed in the golden evening light, butterflies dancing between flowers that had witnessed their journey from heartbreak to happiness. In the distance, the memorial garden's bells chimed softly, carried on the breeze like a blessing. "And that's how we learned," Malcolm concluded, looking at his beautiful family, "that the most precious things in life aren't the ones that shine the brightest at first glance. They're the ones that grow stronger every day, rooted in truth, nurtured by love, and blooming in their own perfect time." Little Angela reached for another butterfly, her laughter mixing with the garden's evening symphony. Above them, a monarch took flight, its wings catching the last rays of sun like a promise of more beauty to come. In this garden of second chances and new beginnings, their love story had found its forever home, and like the seeds they'd planted together, it would keep growing, keep blooming, keep teaching future generations about the power of real love and deep roots. "Ready for dinner?" Lisa asked, gathering their family towards the table. "Ready for everything," Malcolm replied, understanding that every end was just a new beginning in disguise. And as their extended family gathered around tables set among the flowers, sharing food and stories and dreams, the garden seemed to glow with the light of countless possibilities yet to bloom. What legacy would you like to leave for future generations? How do you keep love growing through all seasons? Share your thoughts below.